Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Grandville City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Kay to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grandville.
Here.
Berenger.
Here.
Norwood.
Here.
Steenstra.
Here.
Truce.
Here.
Vanderwall.
Here.
Mayor Mas.
Here. Well, tonight for the invocation, we have Pastor Melanie Bleedstra-Gildort from First Reformed Church. So for those of you who wish, I'd invite you to stand for the invocation. We're going to follow that with a pledge of allegiance.
Will you join me in prayer? Lord, we lift up this community, all of its members, adults, children, our schools, our community, our business leaders, and these leaders here. We lift all those up who are also struggling in one way or another. We come together in all of our differences, asking that you would unite us. Would your wisdom lead us? May it help guide us, and may your grace be part of our conversations as you encourage us and strengthen us and the gifts that we all have and in the callings that you give us. Thank you for those who are here, for the dedication to the city. May you use us and make a difference in this community. I pray this all in your name. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, thanks for being
And
with us.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Well, tonight you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. Motion support. Any comments? All those in favor of approving, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. We also have the minutes from our last meeting, August 11. You've had a chance to review those. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Support. And support. Any comments, questions, additions, corrections, anything else? If not, all those in favor of approving, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, please say no. Right. On to the bills, and this will be the last time this year that we have both old fiscal year and new fiscal year bills. But combined, it's another hefty amount, so lots is happening in the city of Grandville as far as paving and infrastructure and all those kind of things. So, Griffin.
Yes, continuing to make a lot happen in town, which is very exciting. So in regard to the old fiscal year bills, just a few on there as we wrap up the fiscal year accounting before our upcoming audit. The two I'd like to point out this evening, the first one's an invoice in the amount of $24,156 to Camden Cruise. This was approved back on September 9th of last year. This was the new dock system that was installed off of Indian Mountains Drive at the boat launch. This was actually the new dock that was put in earlier in the season. Just got the invoice here before we wrap up our books. So that's what that one is. And then Shareco Communications has been spending quite a bit of time here at City Hall, invoicing the amount of $41,754. This is the first phase of the physical security update improvement project that was approved in January of this year. They've been working to put the cabling, wiring infrastructure in place before we move forward with the next phase. So those are the two I have for the old fiscal year.
Questions for Griffin about any of the bills for the old fiscal year? If not, is there a motion to approve the bills for the old fiscal year in the amount of $89,080.74?
So moved. Support.
Motion and support. Paul? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Berenger.
Yes.
Norwood.
Yes.
Steenstra.
Yes.
Truce.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Grandville.
Yes.
Mayor Mas.
Yes. Now, to the more substantial new fiscal year bills.
Yes, much longer list for new fiscal year, and a few more to highlight. First is Brick Plumbing LLC, a company we see pretty regularly, invoicing the amount of $14,250. This was miscellaneous water service replacements. Department of Transportation in the amount of $37,895.30. I believe this was the remaining piece of the Kenilworth resurfacing project. As a friendly reminder, it's a much more expensive project, but we received 83% of it. via grants with the Grandville Metro Council. Invoice in the amount of $3,395 to Double Haul Solutions. This was a deposit for a consulting firm that's going to be working with the DDA over the next 6 months to do some operational review, some training, and a few other things. And I think I noted somewhere in the materials as well. I do anticipate one of those trainings we may try to hold as a joint meeting with the city council again, kind of like we did last October. So stay tuned for some more information on that. Chrome Rust Control out of Holland in an invoice in the amount of $4,539. This was a rust control spray that the mechanics used to spray city vehicles in preparation for the winter, believe it or not. Think about the salt trucks and equipment such as that, just to help maintain those preventative maintenance. Midwest Food Equipment Service, Inc. Was a new one for me in the amount of $2,252. They did some equipment repairs in the kitchen at the senior center. And the last two, Strain Electric LLC, the amount of $188,000. This was the Wilson and Prairie traffic signal improvements that were approved about this time last year, so in August of '24, that have now been implemented, and I think many of us have seen seem to be a good safety improvement at that busy intersection. And then lastly, WM Soft Wash in the amount of $6,049. This was the water tank power washing that was approved back in July. I think I got to send you all a video they put together to actually power wash the outside of the water tank with a drone, and it was kind of neat to see. So actually a more cost-effective and a much safer option than putting people up there on lifts. So those are the invoices I have to highlight for the new fiscal year, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for Griffin on any of the bills for the new fiscal year? Now, is there a motion to approve the bills for the new fiscal year in the amount of $1,095,235.50?
So moved.
Motion by Tim
Support.
and support by JR. Any comments or questions? Kay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Norhuck.
Yes.
Steenstra.
Yes.
Truce.
Yes.
Vanderwall.
Yes.
Gelderlos.
Yes.
Merringa.
Yes.
Mayor Mas.
Yes. Well, before we have public hearing or public comment, we have a couple presentations. The first one is from Housing Next, Ryan Kilpatrick. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. I promise not to take a lot of it. Is it okay for me to just plug right in?
Yep.
Okay. So I've had the pleasure of getting to work with Griffin over several years in multiple roles, and it's been great to work with him previously, and I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm here on behalf of Housing Next. Housing Next is an initiative that's housed within the Greater Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce. We're supported by several local community foundations, family foundations, local small businesses. And our primary objective is to ensure that there's an adequate supply of housing at every price point. So we want to make sure that we're serving our middle income households, our teachers, our firefighters, our nurses, our police officers, as well as our high income households and our low income households. So we've got a broad continuum of households. All right, there we go.
It's on ours though, so just give us the signal.
Okay. Okay, got it. You'll advance it for me. Thank you. So one of the things I'm sure you're all familiar with is any community that is experiencing growth also has some growing pains. And so Kent County is the fastest or second fastest growing county in the state of Michigan, depending on the 10-year period of time. And we've got to grow by another 34,000 housing units across Kent County over just the next 5 years. That's a very tall order. We're producing somewhere between 12 and 15,000 dwelling units on a decade by decade basis. So we're producing less than half the amount of housing we actually need. And this is the major culprit for fast increasing prices, right? Anytime you have a lot of demand and not enough supply, what happens to price? It goes up. And so as we debate about, is it wages? Are people not getting paid enough? Or is it the high cost of housing? It's a little bit of both. But honestly, what we're really experiencing is we haven't built nearly enough housing to keep up with household growth across Kent County. So go ahead to the next slide. What we want to be able to do is ensure that Kent County can grow, but do it in a fiscally responsible way. One of the ways that we grew over the last 50 to 75 years is we continue to expand infrastructure outward. We added sewer and water, we expanded roads. That worked well for a time, but now what we're starting to find is some of our inner ring suburbs, Grandville, Wyoming, Kentwood, the outskirts of the city of Grand Rapids, are beginning to find that some of that infrastructure has to be replaced. And we don't always have enough revenue in every neighborhood to pay for the costs of replacing that infrastructure. And so part of what we want to be able to do is find those places with excess infrastructure capacity and underutilized and vacant land, and think about who might we serve on that underutilized and vacant land. Good, let's go ahead to the next slide. And in that process, what we want to think about is who are the folks in our community locally who could use additional housing. We want to talk to the local public schools. We want to talk to the fire chief. We want to talk to the police chief. We want to talk to the city manager. We want to talk to local small businesses and understand where are we having challenges in terms of hiring, and how do we still meet all of the needs of the community in terms of fiscal responsibility, in terms of adequate access to green spaces, in terms of a meaningful sense of place and a downtown with character. All of those things continue to be big priorities. Go ahead to the next slide. So as we think about broadly in Kent County, just in the next 5 years, if we were to satisfy demand, we'd need to produce roughly 33,000 housing units. And by 2050, we've got to get closer to 70,000 housing units. If you'll go to the next slide. Currently, this is what our growth trajectory would look like across Kent County. So this is all of the vacant and residentially zoned land across all of Kent County. And what you'll see is we've got more than 129,000 acres of vacant land that is currently zoned for residential use. The problem is most of it's not served by infrastructure. Most of it requires large lot sizes. And therefore, most of it is going to be very expensive. It's going to be $450,000, $550,000 homes, which is fantastic for the folks who are earning $100,000 or $120,000 a year. But as we've got local school districts and local fire chiefs who are trying to hire folks in at $65,000 a year, a $500,000 home isn't in the cards, right? And if we're not building enough new homes, those older homes don't become available to our young workforce as they work their way up. So part of what we want to do is have a smarter, more fiscally prudent strategy. Go ahead to the next slide. And part of what this means is thinking about places like downtown Grandville, like the area around Rivertown Crossings. What we really want is for our local communities to decide where's their opportunity, right? Where do you have infrastructure? Where do you have vacant land? Where do you have opportunity for additional housing? And part of what we want to ensure is that our communities recognize that about half of the market is really seeking suburban neighborhoods, rural places, places that are more driving oriented, more spread out. And the other half of the market is looking for walkable, amenity-rich, place-based neighborhoods. Downtown Grandville is a really great example of that. And we're seeing a continued growth in places like downtown East Grand Rapids, the new village of Ada, right? We're seeing a lot of demand for these place-based, amenity-rich neighborhoods. And it doesn't mean everybody wants it, and it doesn't mean they belong in every place. But as we start to look at opportunities where we have infrastructure and we have vacant and underutilized land, what we want to do is talk to our local community leaders about where there might be opportunity and how we work collaboratively to align incentives, to align investment, to align private capital and the goals of the local community to solve for our housing challenges. Go ahead to the next slide. I think there's just a couple more. One of the important dynamics here that we really want our local communities to understand is across Kent County, 2/3 of households are either single adults or couples without kids at home. So we've got lots of retirees and empty nesters who've got another 30, 40 years of healthy living to do in Kent County. They're probably not going to get out of their houses anytime soon, and we don't want them to. We've also got lots of young professionals who are couples or singles with no kids. They're looking for that first opportunity, that starter house. Maybe it's a starter townhouse, maybe it's a starter condo, the ability to get a toehold into the marketplace. And oftentimes what they need is the most viable but smallest, highest quality unit they can get, right? My dad grew up in a 790 square foot little house over on Coit on the north side of the town with 2 brothers and sisters and his mom and dad. 5 people in a 780 square foot house. They never knew it was small at the time, right? It was pretty normal. That was the early 1950s. Now, on average, what we're building is 2,500 square foot homes, typically, and most of the time it's just 2 people living in those houses. So if you've got the budget and it makes sense to buy a big house like that, that's fantastic. We don't in any way knock that. But we've got lots of young people who want to become homeowners. They can't afford a 2,500 square foot house, but they can afford 800 square feet, 900 square feet. And so what we want to ensure is that we're allowing the kinds of neighborhoods to be built that allow first-time homeowners and first-generation homeowners to get a foothold in the market and start to build wealth in your communities. Go ahead, next slide. One of the last things I want to mention is that cost of infrastructure. So as we look at all the vacant land across Kent County, most of the time what we're going to have to do is build new sewer, water, and roads in order to serve all of that vacant land. And on average, building new sewer and water and roads costs $1,300 a linear foot. So to build out a new lot with 78 feet of frontage, which happens to be the average minimum lot requirement width in Kent County, that minimum lot is going to cost $100,000 worth of infrastructure before you pay for the land, before you start to put a foundation in, and before you build the house. So that means the typical cost of the house when it's done is pretty close to $500,000. If you're putting $100,000 just into infrastructure, it's hard to justify a construction cost that's below $450,000. Go ahead, next slide. I think this is almost the last one. This is an example. What we did is we looked, this is actually in Standale in the city of Walker. We've done a handful of these across Kent County. We compared, what if we took an empty parking lot around a strip mall? And this particular strip mall is at the corner of Kinney and Lake Michigan Drive. Grand Valley State University actually owns the strip mall. It's 80% vacant. There's a Jiffy Lube on the corner, but that's about it. They own 17 acres there, and we looked at how much taxable value is it producing today. It's valued at about $1.9 million. It's producing about $8,000 a year for the county, $3,000 a year for the city, but the infrastructure cost is about $106,000. And so the tax to infrastructure ratio is 10% a year. So over 10 years, it can pay off its infrastructure. Then we said, what if we put infill development there? And we just made up what we were going to put there. We didn't ask the community. This was just an exercise. But we illustrated on 17 acres up to 800 new housing units in low-rise 3-story construction format, which created $157 million of new tax revenue. $648,000 of that goes to the county, $210,000 to the city. Our infrastructure ratio jumps 327%. Now, there are going to be additional costs, right? You have new service delivery costs, all those kinds of things. This might not be the most appropriate pattern of development in all the places. What we wanted to be able to do is show we've got empty space on infrastructure that could accommodate the kinds of housing that young households are looking for in Kent County. Go ahead, next slide. And so if we did something like that across all of Kent County, but we just focused on 32 corridors that have access to sewer and water infrastructure and have a fair amount of vacant and underutilized land, instead of consuming 120,000 acres of forest, farms, and fields, what we could do is use just 3,000 acres of empty parking lots and fallow brownfields behind gas stations to build roughly the same number of housing units using less than 1/100th of the infrastructure cost, because most of the infrastructure is already in the ground in those places. The question is, what makes sense in each local community? And that's not up to us, that's up to our local communities. What we wanted to be able to do is bring data to the communities, bring a handful of ideas, and then hear from you as local experts and your local constituents to say, where might it make sense to be thinking about this? And Griffin and I had a brief conversation. We know there's a couple of sites where, well, yeah, maybe we would entertain those given some conditions. And that's exactly the kind of conversation we want to have with you all. What are the conditions? What are the expectations? How do we begin to push the ball forward? We've got a network of developers. We've got a network of lenders and investors and grant makers. We want to be able to bring all of that to the table to see through the vision that you all have for the city of Grandville and ensure that we're also putting forward the right amount of housing at the right price points. I think there's just one more slide left. And so the idea here is you all set the community priorities. You tell us where there are opportunities where we might be able to be helpful. One of the things that we can do is help to evaluate the current regulatory structure and say, can the market actually build what you say you want in this location? And if not, we'd love to help review the zoning ordinance, review the regulatory requirements. You're under no obligation to do anything. You can take or leave any of our advice. But then once you have a plan that you're interested in, we would work together with your team to figure out how do we make sure it's financed, how do we make sure you have a high quality developer that builds the kind of product you're asking for. And then lastly, in a lot of these places, we've got streets that aren't the kind of a street that you would want to build a neighborhood on today. And so part of what we want to do is think about, do we need to add in a green buffer that makes it so that if we're building on 28th Street or Chicago Drive or 44th Street, Rivertown Parkway, are we creating some green space as a buffer? Or are we reconsidering the design of that street the next time it needs to get rebuilt and building a street that feels like a neighborhood? And that's, again, entirely up to you all. We want to acknowledge some of the places that we're articulating as opportunities aren't beautiful streets today where I would be excited to raise my family, but they could be beautiful streets tomorrow if we make the right investments and at far less cost than expanding sewer and water infrastructure out into the outskirts of Kent County. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or sit down quietly.
Thanks for a great presentation. I learned a few things, and you answered the question, and that was, have you identified some possible sites? And it sounds like you and Griffin have talked about that, so that maybe that's a discussion during a strategic planning session.
Yeah, this really stemmed from just as a follow-up to one of the conversations we actually did during our strategic planning in January, which was there was a lot of talk about 28th Street and starting to think about the future of 28th Street. Obviously, we've got a couple other corridors. Chicago Drive is very important to us. I mean, the DDA is doing some amazing things there, but with some of the tools, creating the commercial rehab district you all did earlier in the year, obviously some talk about some potential regional type developments with the potential of an aquarium or something like that. I mean, 28th Street, I think, is still that one that we keep looking at and going, there's gotta be something better. And I think this corridor strategy that Ryan's talking about and the county's starting to push is just one option that we can continue to think about in terms of what's the future of 28th Street and helping really revitalize that major corridor in our community.
Council, any questions for Ryan or comments?
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Randy, yeah, and then
No, I like everything that you were saying. This is really helpful. Appreciate some of the data and the numbers and everything that you're sharing as well. There's been a fair amount of residential development around here.
Yep.
Primarily a lot of apartment buildings.
Yep.
On the south end of town in particular, kind of right over the line into Wyoming there. We get comments sometimes from people in the community, why are they building so many apartment buildings? Do we really need more apartment complexes and things like that? And that's obviously kind of a response to some of the market demands that you're describing here. But what can be done to, I mean, and I think apartment buildings have their place and everything. You know, it's important to have lots of different options, like you said. But what can we do to encourage more like single family or like owner occupied types of multi-family units and things like that?
Yeah, you know, one of the big challenges for residential developers building for sale housing tends to be the minimum lot size requirement. So oftentimes, if the minimum lot size requirement is 10, 15,000 square feet, they've got to build infrastructure to serve all of that, and that infrastructure is expensive. And so the cost to build out large lot, single family development really pushes those price points up in $350 at minimum, often closer to $450 or $5. So if there are places in the city where you're willing to consider smaller lot sizes or attached homes, townhouses, those are becoming much more popular among first-time home buyers. They typically aren't the place somebody raises a family for 30 years, but most of us only live in any given house for 7 years on average. And so a townhouse is a great way to get a foothold into the market, to be able to own something with a traditional mortgage that's at a price point typically about $100,000 less than a single-family home on a detached lot. Now, I also understand that townhouses don't make sense in every neighborhood. You've got to deal with the exact established character of the neighborhood and where do they fit. And so oftentimes what we think about is along those commercial districts, you might still want retail towards the front of the property. There's often a lot of real estate behind that retail frontage, and thinking about how might we build some neighborhoods in and around those commercial districts that include townhouses or small lot single family, so that you're creating those first-time home buyer options. One of the reasons we have such strong demand for rental product right now is because nobody can break into the home buyer market, right? You're going from paying a rent of $1,500 a month to buying your first house that's going to cost you $2,500 a month. That jump is too big for a lot of people. And often you've got to have $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 cash to put down. So allowing for those kinds of options, smaller homes on smaller lots, is one of the simplest ways to create a stronger home buyer market.
Ryan,
Get creative.
Ryan, in follow-up to that too, are you seeing anything in your relationships with the development community about, like, hey, maybe someone wants to build this larger multifamily rental product? Have you seen communities starting to say, can you build the same product but make it for sale condos as opposed to for rent units? Or are there economic factors where a developer's going, that doesn't work for our math?
Yeah, so I think there are two barriers, and they're not insurmountable, but they're not easy. The first is the math, as you're mentioning. When you build a multifamily unit, you sell it as condos. We don't have a strong market of comparable sales for multifamily condominiums in most of West Michigan. And so when you try to sell a condominium, you're basically creating a new market that you have to prove, you have to demonstrate you can get appraised value. And so the first ones out of the gate have to be in a really high amenity neighborhood, right? It's got to be a great place, right? Like Gaslight Village and the Village of Ada are great opportunities to start that condo market to prove people want that product type. The other barrier is actually legal, and it's the way a condo gets structured. There's a lot of legal cost that goes into creating a condominium structure, and then thinking about how do we operate and manage that building, the HOA fee that has to come with it, because everybody's going to share in the cost of the maintenance of the roof and the walls and all those things. When we buy a single family house, we're under no obligation to set aside money every month to pay for the roof 25 years down the road. But when you buy into a condo, you're obliged to pay into that homeowners association. And so oftentimes we can put off saving for a roof or for new siding or to replace the driveway or whatever it is. You can't put those costs off in a condo. And so you end up with that additional monthly fee that is often a deterrent for folks when they're just trying to compare apples to apples, single family to a condo. But I think you're right, Griffin, we've got to start to push in that direction. And the more we can create really high quality neighborhoods with amenity rich places, I think the more likely it is, even with baby boomers and empty nesters who are saying, you know what, we're done mowing the lawn, we're done cleaning leaves out of the gutters, we really don't want to shovel snow anymore, but we kind of want to stay in our community. Those are the folks who I think are our best opportunities to create really high quality living opportunities for.
Randy, did you have a question?
I did not.
Any other questions, comments? Great, thanks for a good
Yeah.
presentation.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next presentation tonight we have is regarding our water meter replacement. Representative from Aetna Advanced Metering Infrastructure. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. You want to stand up here too? I got some packets I'm going to hand out to you folks so you can follow along with us. Good evening. I am Kevin Dealman with Aetna Supply. This is Raleigh Olney. He's the municipal manager for Michigan. I am the Southwest development manager. As Griffin said, we're talking about water meters and adding that as part of the infrastructure project that the city's been talking about this year. So we wanted to bring a little letter and some pricing and have a conversation with you folks about what that would look like. So I'm just going to follow along with this. I'm not as gifted as talking as Ryan just was, but I'll follow along with this. If you got any questions, feel free to interrupt me. That's all right. Otherwise, wait till the end, whatever works for you. So Replacing the city's aging and inefficient water meters with high-accuracy census smart meters and implementing a census AMI system that's automated meter infrastructure to improve meter read collection and enable integration into the billing system. The AMI system allows near real-time monitoring of the water network, enabling faster response to system issues and promoting proactive water management. By leveraging this smart data, the city can minimize water loss, stay ahead of customer concerns, and ultimately strengthen the relationship between the city and the residents through improved service. Why now? Many of the existing water meters are approaching the end of their useful life and are no longer accurate or efficient. This leads to water loss and missed revenue while operating costs continue to rise. Older meters often experience significant variations in accuracy due to worn internal components. Census smart meters provide industry-leading performance and include built-in alarms for leak detection, backflow, high or low flow, empty pipe, pressure, temperature, tampering, and remote disconnect. These smart features help the city accurately bill customers and quickly identify issues so they can be resolved efficiently. Benefits to the residents. Near real-time system monitoring allows the city to rapidly address resident concerns using accurate data and smart alarm notifications without needing to dispatch a truck to the field. This provides residents with faster, more informed responses and improves their overall experience when interacting with city staff. By resolving issues proactively, employees have more time to focus on preventative work and routine maintenance instead of emergency calls. Smart alarms allow the city to detect leaks, pressure issues, or low temperatures before a resident even notices a problem, helping the residents avoid high bills, water damage, and costly repairs. Why Census and Aetna Supply? Approximately 35% of the city's water meters are already Census smart meters. Census offers best-in-class accuracy and a 20-year accuracy and battery warranty, helping future-proof the water system. Their end-to-end product control, including hardware, software, and proprietary communication frequency, ensures secure, reliable data transmission and single vendor accountability. Census smart meters also have the highest transmit power on the market, providing a broader coverage and reduced infrastructure costs. Aetna Supply is the exclusive Census distributor in Michigan and is based locally with 19 branches statewide. Together with Census and its technical partners, Aetna offers dedicated, responsive support across all components of the Census network. Installation process. Aetna Supply will partner with Professional Meters, Inc. to deliver meter installations. PMI has extensive experience installing Census smart meters across Michigan and is recognized for both technical quality and positive customer engagement. PMI works closely with Aetna Supply and the city to ensure a smooth deployment and respectful communication with residents. Installations typically take less than 30 minutes with a focus on quick, efficient service and minimal disruption to the resident. And in summary, replacing the city's legacy water meters with Census smart meters and deploying a Census AMI system is a strategic investment that will modernize the water infrastructure, enhance operational efficiency, and deliver measurable value to both the city and its residents. This project will equip the city with the tools needed to proactively manage the water system, improve customer satisfaction, and support long-term sustainability. By leveraging reliable real-time data and advanced smart technology, the city can build a more resilient water network that protects resources, reduces costs, and delivers superior service well into the future. Any questions on that?
I've got a quick question, and that, you've answered part of it, and that's about the warranty. I mean, this is a several $1 million project. It's
Sure.
a big item for us. So there's a warranty, a 20-year accuracy and battery warranty. I mean, how's that different than like the mechanical parts, or is that pretty comprehensive and inclusive, that warranty?
So that warranty is best in class. Typically, a mechanical meter, you'll get, like with your Omnis. You guys do have some Omnis installed. That's a 1 year on that chamber. So with with the Ally and the iPearl, those are a non-moving part meter. So there's no wear and tear on that. That's how they can extend that warranty to 20 years.
Yeah, because to say you warrant that it's gonna be accurate, that seems pretty good. And
It
you
is
know, okay.
best in
Just wanted to make
class.
sure I understood
Yep.
that
And I
correctly.
think that's an important piece to highlight of why we're talking about this as part of the bonding project that's been being discussed here for quite a while, is the fact that these meters have this warranty for a 20-year period. They would survive the life of that bond. It's not like we're gonna bond for something in 2 or 3 years, it's gonna be
Correct.
outdated or need to be replaced again. This is really part of that modernization and upgrade to that system to set the community up for, decades.
And with that accuracy guarantee, it kind of goes into what they were talking about earlier. If you're producing the water, there's a cost to that. Collecting the revenue to pay for that is a key component to, expanding your water system, keeping it up to date, repairing it.
Josh?
So a 20-year warranty sounds really good. What's the actual useful life of the meter? Is it much longer than 20 years, or do they typically get replaced at 20 years? Because I just got a new one, like in the last couple of years, and I think it replaced a meter that was probably about 70 years old.
Sure. And to best answer that, after about 20 years, you're going to want to replace that meter. That mechanical meter you had that was 70 years old,
Right, I think
Even
it's as old as my house. but
20,
you're wrong.
30 years old, the accuracy on that greatly depreciates. And
It's about 15% after 20 years on a mechanical meter.
so, you kind of think of it going to a grocery store or anywhere, you get a price and you automatically get a 15% discount because the cash register's no longer accurate. That meter is your system's register to collect, not, you're not making any money on it, you're just collecting the revenue in which you need to operate your system.
And this has been a transition that I know we've been talking about kind of in bits and pieces for some time, and my understanding is you guys started to first approach even before I started with the organization, but this is a transition that really most of our peer communities are making or have already made, and it's really moving us from that legacy technology that of course worked well for a long, long time, and just moving us more into the more modern age with these smart meters. And what they also bring is a level of efficiency that we don't have today in terms of the real-time reading. We would be able to end our contract. We hire, I'm blanking on the name of the firm, it's kind of irrelevant to the point right now, that that goes out and does our quarterly readings of our meters. And where with these, they would automatically read directly to our system. You would be able to remove that piece of the operational process, not even to mention some of the other things that they said. But really what we were hoping to do today and just I guess clarify is there's no action needed on this today, but just wanted to bring it in front of you, give them a chance to talk a little bit about what this would look like. If you don't mind talking through a little bit of the quote for us, just because this is obviously a huge project for our community, but if you don't mind talking through a little bit of kind of the pricing breakdown, the cost of installation, the cost of the actual equipment, some of the ongoing costs. And then I think the other thing the city council kind of wisely keys in on is, can you guys talk a little bit more about what the installation process would look like, and the communication our residents could expect to receive?
Sure. Let's start with the installation. So with that company we partner with, so they have an installation portal. So we work with your billing department, which we get your export file that has every account that you have in your system. Our group then takes it, they do all the scheduling, they set up the call center, they take care of the mailings to let people know we are going to be calling. All of this is done in conjunction with city staff to make sure that the letters are correct. We're not saying anything that you guys don't approve of. Once those schedules start to come in, they will then mobilize, and from there you can do it daily, weekly, however often you want. We can have progress meetings that not only include where we're at, any hurdles or anything we're running into, but that file is seamless. So it's not a paper file that you give to your billing department and they're typing it in. The margin for error is slim to none because it's all electronically transferred from their installation portal to BSNA, correct? You guys use BSNA? So, I mean, it's seamless, and then that is all uploaded. You know, again, your billing clerk is not spending an entire day typing in meter changeouts. With that, you also get a picture of the old meter that they took out, the reading, the meter setting. I mean, you'll have more information than what you'll probably want, but nonetheless, while they're in there, they'll look at that and provide that all to you.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, we can go over the question.
Just to kind of build on what the mayor and councilman America said was, 20 years seems like a long time, but myself, Councilman America, and the mayor's been here for 20 years or so.
Sure.
And it's really not that long. What are these lithium batteries, or what is the, like right now, we have 35% of our community with this meter. What's the price of the replacement battery right now? And I understand they're under warranty, but what's the potential cost that we're looking at down the road as these batteries fail? And who's responsible for the software upgrades, and all these type of questions?
Sure, so the meter itself, that battery is potted, it is a lithium battery in there. It is completely sealed, it's hermetically sealed within that meter, so it's not just a battery change, it's a new meter that comes along with that. As far as pricing down the road, 20 years from now for a new meter, I don't think I could speak to that. Today, they're right around $400 for these specific meters, $450 for these specific meters. What was the other half of your question there?
The software.
Okay.
And the maintenance of it. I mean, is it a program that's installed on the city, our side, the city side, and then we have to maintain that or is that software provided by the manufacturer of the meter company, or just?
So,
Do you want to take that?
yeah, so that is all included in the annual hosting. So all the updates, it is cloud-based, all the updates, everything are taken, taken care of in the background. It's nothing that, city staff has to worry about doing. So yes, it's all cloud-based. Sorry, Kevin, I thought you were going to.
Yeah, no, that's, you're absolutely right.
So it does not reside on a hard drive or a server, within the city, city hall or anything. It is, there's 2 data centers that, well, 3, but 2 that in North America that, Census backs up all their data to. So that's.
Did that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
And I think that may clarify a little bit more if you want to work through the couple
Yeah.
pieces of this quote, just because I think it really does help to understand kind of the one-time implementation costs, the actual meter costs, and
Sure.
then kind of the other pieces of
Yep.
this project.
So we have our quote broken down into different sections there. You'll see the descriptions on the top there. So the first one is the infrastructure installation. So that is the physical parts needed to build. We have two sites in here is what covers you for your AMI system. So that covers your infrastructure, your installation, your setup, your training, all your first year fees is all included in that first total right there. So any meter, for instance, any census meter you have currently in your system with a transmitter on it, if you were to put a tower system up next week, it's going to take a few weeks, but if it were to say up next week, you could be reading, a day later, any meter that's transmitting currently on that system. Second is just the meters and transmitters. So that's just your product. So your water meters, the AMI transmitters, just for the residential and commercial, that's your total there. Again, just product only.
And to clarify for council, the fact that we've had a percentage of meters already in the community that have already been transitioned, those obviously would not be replaced again. They've already been transitioned to the modern smart AMI meters.
Yep.
This would be a wholesale replacement of all of those that have not already been touched.
Correct. You're approximately 35% of your census meters that are installed with transmitters on them will talk through this system. They will not need to be replaced. So there is a tariff surcharge on there. So we have gone back and forth. I know everybody just hate hearing that word tariff for the past few months. We have been taking that and not passing that on to our customers, but Census finally said to us, we need to up this, the percentages, we're paying too much into it. So you'll see that on there at 69,000, just over. We met with Census over the last 3 or 4 weeks. We have 3 projects we're working on in the state of Michigan. I am in the Southwest Michigan territory. And we said, hey, we've had these conversations going for years, talking about these projects. We really don't want to approach these customers and say, this is an added cost. You can do a lot with $70,000. We have Census agreeing that if any of these projects, and it's more than 3, we got a few more in the state too, but if by September 30 we have order agreements in with them, that tariff charge will be waived. So just keep that in mind. That's them doing a good faith for us with some of these projects, how long we've been working with our customers on them. So that can very easily go away, but our contract is by September 30 we have to have any order contract in with them. So installation, water meter and transmitter installation, this covers the whole process from mobilization, removal of the old meters. I assume the city would want to keep and scrap them, so they would take out the old brass meters. You would have full ownership of those meters to do as you wish with them. I think we had doing a cross connection and material line in survey, so that's also the installers while they're putting the meter in the basement, they'll look and see what's stubbing in through the wall, and then what the customer has as their plumbing, and then also any cross connections, so they'll look in the immediate area of where they're going to put the water meter in, and they'll look and see if there's any plumbing, any hazards there, anything that could cause a back siphon or bring water from a private residence back into your water system. They'll make sure they report any of those issues to you as well. So that's all included under the installation. And then hosting and pressure profile, those are your, like Riley was saying, that's all your hosted data. That covers your software, your updates, your firmware, anything that may need to happen to that meter or through your system, even your base stations. If we need to update any software or fix, I don't want to say fix, that's under protection, but any updates needed, that covers that under hosting. And then that last is the optional protection plan. So that does cover if anything goes wrong with that base station. Again, you have 2 of them, that's why you see quantity 2 there. That does get engineering involved at Census. They'll bring up their techs if we have to troubleshoot or fix anything with the base station there. You don't have to purchase the protection plan right now. That has changed a little bit since this quote came out. You're not tied into a contract like they used to do it. This is only over the last couple weeks. You could jump in on year 4 and say, hey, we want to start using, we'll go 4 years without protection, that's fine. We believe this stuff's going to work. And let's say year 5 or 6, you say we want to buy into that protection plan now. It's like insurance to make sure that it's, that your base stations are running. You can buy in then. There is going to be a price increase for you opting out of the first few years, since you've now aged that infrastructure a little bit longer. That price will change than if you were just in started in year 2 or 3. So year 1 is covered in that base station installation setup. That's why you see that protection plan start at year 2. Same with the hosting. You see it starts in year 2 under that category. Year 1 is included in that base station installation and setup. Hopefully that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I'm not gonna delve too much into national politics, but the tariff surcharge is interesting because I've been told that the tariffs are being paid by foreign countries, and this doesn't seem to jive with that, so we may need to question that narrative. But one of my, say it again.
I guess they're not made in the USA.
Must not. But my question is, from a residential standpoint, I understand the city's standpoint here, we should have more accurate records and data when we're collecting and accurately collecting to cover our costs. But from a resident standpoint, this sounds like a lot of increased costs. We're bonding. We have 15% that they've been paying a discount on because they have these old meters in place right now. So we're going to see some increases in costs for residents. And so I'm wondering, is there any advantage to the resident, the taxpayer, to say, well, there's some efficiencies built into this. We can now read remotely and things like that. Do we anticipate anything more than negligible cost savings based on us doing this? Or is it just this gives us more accurate data and we're collecting better and thank you, but your rates are now higher?
Sure. So as we discussed earlier, it will allow you to be more proactive. Right now, you guys bill quarterly. Did I hear correctly? Quarterly. So by the time a quarterly bill comes out for a resident and they had a leaking toilet, which you don't think is really that big of a deal, and now they got $1,000 water bill, so it adds up quick with an AMI system, with the leak continuous flow detection, leak detection, however you want to refer to that, those types of things, you can proactively see that because on a daily basis, when you come in, you'll see that continuous flow report. We could call up the mayor and say, you know what, we knock on your door. We've seen you've been using, 1,000 gallons of water every day for the past 3 days. Or you get out there and you're like, oh, they got, the greenest yard in town. Okay, that makes a little sense, but it allows you to help the residents better prepare or actually head off a high water bill. With that, it also, you guys bill quarterly. Electric, gas, almost every other utility in the United States is billed monthly. A water sewer bill on a quarterly basis, I'm sure all you guys know, can get very costly. With this, again, not having to roll a truck to go out and read these meters, you can do it with a few clicks of a mouse. You could opt to go to maybe a monthly or every other month billing system, so then that helps defer that cost over 12 months instead of those 4 quarterly bills.
The other one, if I can, Justin, just to piggyback on that I would encourage us to think a little about is, I think you are absolutely right, that in the short term, there are going to be impacts that will be felt by our residents, particularly in regard to their bills, the inconvenience of needing to change out a meter, and those types of factors. I think longer term, transitioning to this more modern technology with the accurate billing is going to, one, help ensure that we're keeping up as opposed to falling behind when it comes to not only the operations, but the financial sustainability of our system. And I obviously also don't want to undersell, the thought and work and concern that went into the water rate study we conducted earlier this year. And I know the difficulty of swallowing that pill and going, this was what was the right thing for our system, ensuring that we are collecting what we should be collecting in our system is one of the most proactive things the city council can do to try to prevent major increases like that from happening again. I'm not gonna be able to sit here and make you a promise I can't keep that it never will, but that is something tangible that you can do to try to minimize some of those large jumps that, for example, we know we just went through.
And I just want to say that the purpose of my question isn't because I'm a penny pincher or anything. I am, but that isn't the purpose of the question. Is really, I think it's important for in our communication with residents that we highlight these things so that they do recognize that while this may come with some increased costs, there are also increased efficiencies. You don't have these disasters happening that are extremely costly. So the more we do to advertise that and educate the community on that, maybe it helps reduce a little bit of that feeling of frustration when you see a higher water bill.
Sure. Some of my customers have, they raise that same question when we've implemented a system like this. And what they've done to offset that is it gives you some more engagement with your customer, with your residents. And you can have that talk. It gives you a platform now to talk to them about being a little bit more efficient with their water use, being a little bit more, sure of what they're using from a month to month. I've had a couple customers give discounts for residents' water bills if they were to prove that they put in a low flow toilet, if they were to put in a low flow shower head. If they brought a receipt in and proved that that they put this in, and now they didn't have to go into the house and look at it, they didn't want a picture, but if they had a receipt from the customer that said, yeah, we put 3 water saving shower heads in, okay, we'll give you 5% off your next bill. You know, that, it gives you a platform to then talk, have that conversation with your residents on why it's important and how they can reduce their own bill by being more conscious about what they're doing and how they're using water in their own home. So,
Yes.
Yeah, a couple more questions for you. So, obviously the meters that would be replaced would be the 65% that aren't currently on this type of meter, right? So that's what this cost is for the other 65%, converting everything over to the.
yes, that's correct. Yep, correct.
What about the hosting and the, like, the stuff that kind of is for the whole system? Is that inclusive of all of it, or just the 65% that are being replaced?
It's based on the total number of endpoints in your system.
Okay, so we'll add the 35% that are already installed into the whole network of meters then?
Correct.
So we're not currently using the smart meter functionality of the meters that have been replaced? right?
You're not using the AMI function. You're using a smart meter with a smart transmitter.
Okay.
But again, you're going out and reading that with a handheld.
Yeah.
We
And
are not using them to their full
Okay,
capacity.
because we got some of these new ones that we're not fully up to speed with being able to kind of take advantage of all the efficiencies.
that is correct.
And that's part of, so I think
part
that's
of this,
a great
everything on the
point.
same system.
Josh is, again, it's biting the bullet to make the full transition right now. What we've been doing over the last 5 years or so, I guess Jane, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, 5-ish years we've started replacing,
Yes.
is as meters have needed to be replaced, we've started doing that. We do that with our staff time, we do that on an as-needed basis, and what we have found is beyond the just operational inefficiency of that, until we get to a point where we have X amount of meters who have already been changed, it's like we're replacing them with something that we're only using 40% of the capacity to.
Right.
So to get the full benefits for our community, both residents and city operations, the question is really, do we pull the trigger while we're going to bond for these other projects? Have a company come in, do the full replacement. Aetna's gonna be the only group in the state that's gonna be able to get us the quantity of meters we would need at one time to make this transition and make the full turn now. I know I asked the question both to the reps here and to the rest of our team, okay, so what happens in another 25 years? And the answer is we very likely will have to have some kind of conversation like this again. But that's the same we have to have in 25 years when we replace the water mains go longer than that, but you know, the inevitable lifespan of some of these systems, and who knows what the equipment or the new technology is gonna be at that time. So, I mean, I think what I would say is kind of full circle from where we started, you know, we're comfortable that using bonding proceeds that are going to take years and years to pay off, we are looking to make an infrastructure systemic improvement that is going to last for the life of that bond. And it's really just a payment principle difference of, do you save up until you have enough money and do them all then? Or in this case where we built in this bond into the new rate structure we put in place, do we take out this loan, this bond, and essentially have the proceeds available over their life to pay the project off?
Yeah, I mean, I like what I'm hearing about the improvements with the efficiency and the technology and all that too, but that's one of the things that makes me nervous is, are we gonna be committing to a multi-million-dollar infrastructure replacement in 20-25 years if all these meters now need to be completely replaced? That's why I asked the question earlier about, just because it's out of warranty doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily work anymore, you know, could they go for 30 or 40 years, they're just, you know, not warranted, and if they fail, they have to be replaced, or are we looking at replacing the entire city of meters in 20-25 years because they are functionally obsolete, no longer, you know.
Very
That's what it
likely.
sounds like you're saying.
Yes,
but who
very
knows what
likely.
happens in 25 years either.
That is very likely, yes.
So one other question that I had, kind of to figure out from Justin's point is, so benefits to residents. We upgrade all these meters to this technology and are able to use the full capabilities of this. Am I able to download a mobile app or go on a website and see what my daily usage is for my water? Because one of the things I really don't like right now is the billing is always like 3 months retrospectively. I have no idea how much I'm spending on water when I'm watering my lawn or flushing my toilets and things like that until I get the bill. Is there a way that I can be more proactive about my own water use by seeing what my daily, weekly, monthly use is in real time, like I can for Consumers Energy?
So there is some third-party customer portals that your residents can, that if the city wants to go get a customer portal that this data can tie into, and your residents they can set their own usage alerts. They can see what their, basically to the hour usage is. It's an add-on. It's one that the city can look and purchase themselves that will tie in with the census software, or it's one that we can look into for you, and we can facilitate one that works with census as well. Census is right now working on their own independent customer portal. They did have one. It was ran through a company called Vertex One software. Vertex One was trying to get, I think, out of the commercial game and more wanted to be more privatized with direct sales with some of their customers. So they were increasing rates, and Census said we're not going to continue doing this. We got to pass this on to our customers. We're going to step back from this, and we're going to come back when we have something. So they're very close. I don't know if it's going to be a year or 5 years from now, but they are looking at having their own customer portal that ties into their system. But right now there's a handful of third parties that work very closely with not only I don't want to say BSNA, with the census software that can take that data and make it very easy for your customers to access. So, and again, it's something that we can look into as Aetna, or it's something you can look into as the city.
I mean, I'd be interested in seeing what that costs or what that additionally would look like, because I could see
Sure.
where that could be a big benefit for our
Sure.
residents. People that have pools, people that have underground sprinkling, to be able to, some people are more diligent or more interested in having
Mhm.
that kind of data to help manage their own costs and
Sure.
utility usage than others. Some people don't care, and that's fine too, but to have that option available for people that would be interested, I think would be a big benefit.
Well, I'll look into that. We'll have a conversation about that. Just in my experience, when we've set those up, you're lucky if you get more than 10% of your residents to do it. And I get, like you just pointed out, some people won't care.
Right, that's fine, but
yeah.
just if the information's available, it'd be nice for people to be able to access
It'd
it.
be nice to have access.
The third party that we deal with on one of the third parties, they sell it in packets. So you're not
Yep.
buying it for your
You
whole
can-
system wide. You can buy a packet of, I think the minimum packet's 1,500.
Yep.
But that way you're not purchasing your whole system wide, and now you're stuck with it. And like
That
Kevin
was my
said,
next point, yeah, is you can buy licenses for X amount, and then if you get enough people signed up for it and say, hey, we need to look at it, that seems to be a very good way to go with that. So,
Thanks.
yep, we'll look into that.
Not to drag this any longer, but one other kind of important thing I think the council would benefit from is, can you guys talk a little bit about this transition that you've done in some of our neighboring communities? I know when we talked a little bit about, I think, Georgetown, Wyoming, Grand Rapids, I may be forgetting a couple others.
Sure.
Just that this is a transition that some of our neighbors and peer communities have gone through.
Yeah.
Just what did that process ultimately look like for you?
Absolutely. If you go to that last page, we do have some stats on there and some of the communities in Michigan that are using the Census AMI system. So Georgetown, Zeeland, I guess I'm trying to remember how those processes went. I mean, very closely to how we've been doing this here is, we had an install group come in. Did we do install in Georgetown? We did. We did some install in George. They did some of we're looking at doing the rest of it.
correct.
So we didn't do install there.
City of Adrian, Van Buren Township. I know again, not right here in Kent County. We used two different companies. One was PMI. Again, it was a pretty smooth transition. Very few hiccups along the way. The biggest issue that they usually run into is, you don't know what you're dealing with when you get into a private house and what their plumbing's like. If they go to shut that valve off, the last thing they're gonna do is crank on it, because now they're flooding someone's house. So really, that's the biggest issue that we see with, the installation. That, and you're gonna run into just a group of residents who say, no, I'm not gonna comply. They get to the end of a project, and that's when we come back to you guys and say, look, we've exhausted all means of getting in and replacing these meters. Typically, those are, returned to the utility for you guys to, write letters, those type of things. Generally, we see 85 to 90% success.
So if there's an incident like that in somebody's basement, I'm assuming the installer's fully insured and all of that?
They
stuff?
are.
Okay.
They are, and like I said, when they get to one, if they go to turn it, we'll have a staff
Yeah.
contact. They'll ask them to shut the water off at the curb stop, so that way we're minimizing any potential damage that could happen in the house.
Absolutely.
Kind of to your last point, if residents or businesses don't want to comply, is this a 100% or nothing project? What are the implications if residents or businesses say nothing?
So that's where your ordinance would come into play. You know, if you're going through a meter change-out program as part of your ordinance that they must comply, or however that is written. Again, I don't know how that is specifically, but usually that's where it falls back. We'll give that, and I say give back, we get to that point to where we're not getting any more installations scheduled that last. If it is 10%, it may be 5%. Every community is different. Generally, we see 85 to 90% compliance. You know, COVID actually kind of had a big play in that drove the numbers down a little, because I don't want to let a stranger in my house. I don't care if he's wearing a mask. You know, unfortunately, that did play a factor in it. We're not seeing that now as much. But
That doesn't answer my question. So like if we say no, or a resident says no, or a business says no, does that affect our bonding? Does that affect our ordinance?
No,
Does
so
that
that's a
affect-
policy decision that,
Correct.
that we would make you all would make as a city council. You all would have the opportunity by ordinance to require somebody who's on our water system to facilitate this change out. The other option that you guys were correct on is if somebody doesn't wanna change it out, so we would not have the opportunity to virtually read them, and we would have to continue to manually read them, there's options to add surcharges or additional, I'm gonna use the word reverse incentives, but, you know, there are various options that we would
But as a
have.
city, like the bonding part is not like 100% or nothing.
Correct. The bonding would be the way for us to fund this. The bonding's not gonna be impacted if a resident or a group of residents say, we're not gonna do that. We would have to decide how we wanted to handle it a different way.
Randy?
One quick, lighthearted kind of discussion question. Where are these census smart meters manufacturers, since we're looking at a potential tariff?
assembled in Mexico.
Thank you.
Assembled.
And the parts?
A lot of our American made. Yes.
Thank you.
Not 100%. You know.
Any other comments, questions? No, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you all.
Thank you. It's time for public comment. Anybody here tonight like to address the council? Just come on up to the podium, give us your name, address, and just tell us what you're thinking about. Martha, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Martha Vermeulen, 4263 Indian Spring in Grandville. Little Grandville. Well, water seems to be the hot topic tonight here in City Hall. So I think you'll be very pleased to know that our very special watershed of Buck Creek is flowing much more freely tonight without as much plastic, styrofoam, keyboards, tires, TVs, perhaps a bicycle here or there, because of the 100+ volunteers who volunteered a couple Saturdays ago to help clean her shores, her banks. I think shores is the ocean term. One of our volunteers, by the way, did say that she thought it would be really worthwhile if the city, maybe you have one, but I'm not aware of it, would organize a collection day for the kind of items we were finding in the creek. So perhaps people wouldn't be as inclined to toss them in there. It's funny, but it's not. Good news, really good news, although that was real good news, is that we had a site in the past that we've cleaned that really didn't need the attention this year. So we are definitely making a difference, and so appreciative of our volunteers. We had 7 sites this year, some in Grandville, some in Wyoming, some further upstream. There was even a group that went out to the Grand River, to the Indian Mounds, which is always a horrendous task and needs lots of work, but I know you're working on that, and that's exciting. I'm here to especially thank those of you who are involved, which is all of you. It's the city of Grandville that gets behind this. Mayor Moss, as always, we are very appreciative of the very welcome lunches that you serve our volunteers when they come back all grungy and hungry. They were delicious, thank you, and we appreciate your son joining us as well. Councilmember Maringa and his two hard-working sons had a great time, and we really appreciated you being there. And Charlie Sunblatt and his DPW team do a lot of cleaning up after the cleanup. We appreciate that as well. And it's great to have the community behind us. Thank you so much. Mitch was supposed to talk about this, but you get me instead. You have another opportunity to support Buck Creek coming up. September 13th, and we'll get you some more hard copy information about this. We are having, oh, you got it, good, thank you. The Grandville Environmental Sustainability Committee partners with Friends of Buck Creek, the Lower Grand River Organization of Watersheds, ELGRO, and WEMIAC, let's see if I can do this one, West Michigan Environmental Action Council, along with Kent County Parks, who were with us, did a lot with the cleanup too. We're having a second Buck Creek EcoQuest, which is a family-friendly opportunity to have fun while educating the community to the challenges and the joys of Buck Creek. And that will be, as you have in front of you, September 13th. We've added a few new events this year. My personal favorite is returning, where you get to put on waders and get out in the creek and collect macroinvertebrates with people who can tell you all about them. It is fascinating, it really is. And it proves our creek is somewhat healthy because you can find those little critters out there. We're adding art along the creek. We're also having a monarch station because the mayor's going to give us a proclamation, which will make, maybe I shouldn't say anything yet because I see it's further down on the agenda, so I'll wait. But that's going to be exciting. We are just going to have lots of activities that everyone will enjoy, and I certainly hope that you can be there because it's a great way to support your community, get to know your constituents, get to know your community, and celebrate that wonderful Buck Creek that we all appreciate. I was excited to see that the city of Grandville had done a strategic planning session back in January, and Buck Creek made the top 10 as far as protecting and preserving it. So thank you for that and for your work with that. And also, I don't know if you were aware, I think you probably are, that the Environmental Sustainability Committee put out a survey recently, and there were several questions. The two that I thought were especially telling was about the topics or interests for future learning of the people who took the survey. Number one, at the top of the list, protecting our water. And then as far as top environmental concerns from that survey, water quality came out at the top again. So there's definitely a need in our community. And, from the agenda, water and Buck Creek are treasures that we have here in Grandville. And thank you so much for all you do to protect and support it.
Thank you, Martha, and Friends of Buck Creek for organizing another great event.
Well, you've been a big part of that.
Doing about 10, 11 years.
Well, I'm supposed to be on this panel tomorrow to talk about how to get a grassroots watershed organization going. So we've been delving into some history because there were just things that seemed magical to me. Like all of a sudden people would appear and I had no idea where they came from. And now I understand it was other organizations like ELGRO that were encouraging these people to join this little group that we had started. So we have been, the Friends of Buck Creek has been here for 10 years. But there were cleanups a couple years before that were run by Shrem's Trout Unlimited. So we've probably had about 12. I think this was our 12th, but not officially Friends of Buck Creeks. So not that matters, but any other questions? All righty, thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council? Yeah. Bruce, Mike?
Go ahead, sir. Bruce Averill, 3520 Earl, Lot 15. Can I approach the bench and?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. this fellow here, I'm interested in because he's an attorney,
Okay.
and here's one for you.
You want me to hand them out for you, Bruce?
Would you please?
Sure.
There might not be enough. I thought there was only 7 of you.
No problem, we'll make it work.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh.
Well, my problem started with the fella in Jennison, Chuck Dyke. He gave out a permit for a pool. And I have an easement that starts at my property and goes to the 2 big drains down below. And it was a couple days because I had to go back to Chuck with a police officer. He would not give me copies of the sketch that was made, and he just looked at it and gave him a building permit. So I had about 2 days in there. They got a lot of progress done. By the time I got back to Chuck, they had water in the pool. The pool is sitting almost 100% on the easement, and they built it up 4 feet. Now that easement is there for water that comes down from the Bentley house, across my property, and goes down in the drains. And I think it really, Chuck messed up. He should have pulled the map, which he had at the time, but he didn't check it. He just took it for granted. What the guy gave him was legit, but it wasn't. I went back the next day, and he pulled it, and he says, oh, whoops, he didn't put the easement on there. No kidding. So I went back and met with him, and I tried to get a stoppage. You didn't stop right away, but we do have a stoppage now. But you read the last paragraph on that, what I just gave you, down there with the arrow on it, and that says, no pools in the easement, no shrubs, no nothing. The easement remains the exact slope that it was. Now, I got in trouble with them because I went over on their yard and I wanted them to cut that down a little bit more, so I had a little bit more going because the drains were down like on here, but over here on my side, I had 1.5 feet of dirt yet. They put a lot of dirt in there. The reason why they filled that is because that's holding the pool. They had to bring dirt in, and what it is a fiberglass pool that's been bolted together. And, then they go down, they put sand in, and then they put a light, for a better word, concrete, and then they put the liner in, and then they put the water in. And that's the way it sits today. Now, they've also got cement forms for patios all the way around the pool. Well, what that does, that cuts me out from the water from natural rain that goes into the surface. So,
I've got a quick question. So Griffin, you've taken a look at this. Is this, or Bruce, either one of you probably know the answer, or maybe David does. Is this from the covenants and restrictions from the plat?
downtown, I got it from the deeds,
Yeah,
registered
it's
deeds.
Part of the plat.
Yeah, so we've been working with Mr. Averill for a few.
You didn't have that here. I gave him a copy of that there.
Yeah, so we've been working with Mr. Averill for a couple weeks. He's correct, there's some things we're trying to work through between him and his neighbor who's installing a pool. There has been a stop work order that was issued. Mr. Averill's correct that the easement was not originally identified on the plans when the building permit was issued. Because of that, that's why a stop work order has been issued. But I do want to clarify for the group, the easement that we're talking about is a private easement. So the city's not responsible for tracking or enforcing private easements, so that's an added complication to this whole situation. So what we're working on right now is a stop work order has been put into place, and the property owner who is installing a pool has to work with a licensed engineer to prepare a drainage plan that will be reviewed by Moore and Bruges Inc. To show that the installation of that pool is not going to have negative drainage implications on the neighbors. But as Mr. Averill is referencing in regard to the private easement that's back there, there are some additional steps that he could choose to take in regard to enforcing that private easement. So it's
Well,
an
Steve knows I've had nothing but water problems. Nothing but water problems.
Yep, we've talked several times. You have some historic water issues in terms of the location in town for a variety of reasons. We also have the pool situation we're trying to work through right now. So I don't wanna confuse those two situations. I think they're both valid and both things that we can try to talk through, but the pool one and kind of your historical drainage.
So
issues
you're
are-
saying that you have no issue with the private easement, it just exists and you don't have any responsibility?
What I shared, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, the issue is, and I'll just, 2 points, I guess. First, from a legal perspective, the city, when it enacts zoning laws and it makes rules about how residents can use their property, it has to act under the authority that's given to it. And in Michigan, that's the Zoning Enabling Act. So if the city wants to enact a law that it enforces on residents regarding how they develop their property, has to do it through a certain process, and then those rules are given force of law. Where private residents enact deed restrictions, private deed restrictions, the city doesn't and generally can't enforce those. So that's one issue, a legal issue. The second issue is a practical issue. And that is that the city, there are a lot of private restrictions about how property is used. Plat restrictions, deed restrictions, condominium documents. And if the city was tasked with trying to enforce all of those private restrictions, the police department literally be the condo police, and they wouldn't get anything done. So there's those two issues. Now, that's not to say that drainage isn't important. It isn't an issue that can be addressed via site plan review, and that's why the city's put a stop work order on the project and required the resident to go and develop a drainage plan and show that to the city. And in addition, I just want to say, there is nothing at all that prevents you from taking private action to enforce these deed restrictions if you think your neighbor is violating them. That is entirely within your purview.
But what about Chuck's responsibility up there in Genesee?
Well,
He did not check.
And to be clear.
He gave a building permit out.
Yeah, I understand. And to be clear, the city generally doesn't, no city does, go and pull a title search when somebody comes in for a building permit to see whether there are private agreements that have been entered into by one landowner with another landowner regarding how that property is used.
But he lied. He didn't put the easement on there.
And that's why the
And
stop
that's
work
why the
order
stop
was
work
issued.
order was issued. Because
Yeah.
the site plan required the property owner to show easements. He did note the drain, but he didn't depict the easement. And as I said, I think there is probably some authority for the city to address drainage issues through site plan review. So the city is using all the power available to it to try to address your concerns.
So Griffin, so I understand, so the stop work order has been issued
Yes.
until
they can submit to us a drainage plan that can get approved by the city engineer,
Which is
showing
going
us, showing us that the pool is not going to have negative drainage
and
consequences
so
on the neighbors.
what's the timing on that?
I would anticipate we're looking at a couple weeks until that individual can have a plan prepared, which is why they've done some temporary grading in the backyard so that while there's this stop, we're not gonna have drainage or pooling issues, or at least the best we can control at this time. And we just have to wait until the neighbor has submitted a drainage plan. In the interim, they cannot continue to work on their pool. That property owner is communicating with me almost daily. I do know they have hired an engineering firm. So at this point in time, and Bruce, I know we're talking regularly, about this, is the best we can do right now is just try to be patient and let this process.
I just learned that he was told by the neighbor who's directly in back of him that he could not have a pool in there.
I can't speak to that.
Well, I can use that in my defense.
Again, this is a situation you absolutely have the right to work with an attorney, as the city attorney's even said. That's something that you may.
What's the going rate for attorneys today? Huh?
He's very reasonable. I'm worth every penny.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
$600?
It can vary dramatically depending on which attorney and what their specialty is.
Good, well, it sounds like you brought it to the attention of the city, sounds like the city has done what they can right now, and it's just a matter of waiting to hearing back yay or nay from Warren.
We're committed to working through it.
Good, thank you. Thanks for letting us know about it, Bruce.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else here tonight like to address the council? Mr. Cobb, welcome.
Mike Cobb, 336 240th. Real quick, the Moxie job site. I went over to Hudsonville and looked at it. They did a great job over there, came in under budget, and was finished up early, so that could be a good thing. I want to thank Charlie for letting us drop brush off and stuff. Me and my wife have 4 widow ladies in our neighborhood that we're helping stay in their house, and be able to do that it's just huge, trim trees for them and stuff. And Charlie, thanks for 44th Street again in Rivertown. I know people were screaming at you, but I want to scream at you how nice it is. It's just a blessing. And then also the sponsors for the 4th and the street party and stuff, thanks to all them and Teresa's, work on that. But Steve, especially for you, every year you're just up there sponsoring and helping our community in these events. And I'm just really thankful to God that you're our mayor, and for all of you sitting here, I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate the kind words. Anybody else like to address the council? Kelly, you got anything?
We're good for, I think we have something later.
Oh, you do, that's right, yes. Last call for public comment? Anybody else? Okay, we'll go under ordinances and resolutions. First one is proposed resolution number 3379. That's a bond authorizing water infrastructure improvements. Yes, water is the topic. Sue, welcome from Varnum,
Hello.
the bond expert.
Yes.
Thank you.
So many of you have seen me before come up here and explain your bond authorizing resolutions. And so today we're talking about a resolution to authorize bonds in the amount of not to exceed $10 million. And at this point, we do expect that the bonds will actually be in the amount of $10 million. So that's a part of your project, your water project that you've been talking about, and there will be a second series of bonds in a couple of years to pay for the rest of the project. This is structured as a capital improvement bond, which has a full faith and credit limited tax pledge. It's a general obligation. We've talked before about that your water system rates and charges will actually be tapped to pay for this, but technically, in terms of the security, how this is being sold to the bond market is as a limited tax general obligation of the city. So you can take the money to pay for the bonds from your water system rates and charges, but you are on the hook with your general obligation pledge, and that will get you a lower rate, interest rate on the bonds than if you were to sell this as a pure revenue bond, and that's why we've set it up that way. So even though your full faith and credit is pledged, it will be paid from water system rates and charges. But if for any reason those charges were not sufficient to pay for the bonds, you would have to pay for it as a part of your general fund as a first budget obligation. So that's just by way of background. This is a very long resolution, and a lot of it is very detailed. If you have questions on it, I'd be happy to go into it, but I'm going to just skip over and hit some of the highlights. So As you know, we did have a notice of right of referendum that was approved, and the 45-day referendum period has passed. So now we can go through and issue these bonds without any voter approval. We're setting it up with this bond authorizing resolution, and the resolution authorizes the authorized officers, which are either the mayor or the city manager, to make the final determinations, and we do that through a sale order. So timing-wise, we will be going out to the market later this week where we're going to post an offering document, and then bids will be received on September 9, I believe it is. And it'll be a competitive sale, and when the rates are received, then we'll be able to structure the final decisions about the bond, and that's when the authorized officer will approve. So this resolution sets forth the parameters within which the authorized officer has to act. So, as I mentioned before, it's not to exceed 10 million. Then paragraph 2 contains a number of the details in terms of this, including a not to exceed interest rate of 6%. And we think the rate will be lower than that, but that's, if the rate were to exceed true interest cost of 6%, we could not approve the sale without coming back to the city council. Just like your other bonds, it'll be paid with annual principal installments and semi-annual interest installments. The proposed maturity schedule is a 30-year bond. It's set forth on page 3. Those exact numbers are subject to change based on interest rate and whether there's premium and discount bid. But that's essentially what we're looking at. And then in the sale order, we'll make the final determinations, and that will be prepared after the bids are received in a couple of weeks. The bonds are authorized to go through DTC. That's a clearinghouse so that we don't have to deal specifically with all of the individual bondholders, and that's how all of your other bonds are set up as well. There's a 10-year no-call provision for these bonds, and that's typical. So for 10 years, you will not be able to call the bonds, but after 10 years, if interest rates are improving, you'll be able to refund them and call the bonds and issue new ones or pay them off if you, I mean, that'd be unlikely in 10 years, but it'd be possible legally. Huntington Bank is going to be your paying agent. Now they have entered into some deal with Argent Institutional Trust Company that's expected to close by the end of this month, where they're the successor, but the individuals who we've been dealing with for years are moving over to Argent, so it should be a fairly seamless transition to work with Huntington/Argent. Then there's some provisions for what would happen if someone needs to transfer or exchange the bonds, or if their bonds are lost or destroyed. Then we get to paragraph 7, which is the security pledge, which, as I just mentioned, is your full faith and credit limited tax obligation. The resolution authorizes the different funds. There's a project fund and a debt retirement fund, and we estimate the period of usefulness to be not less than 30 years. Now, I know we mentioned in the earlier presentation that those meters, which are part of this, have only a 20-year useful life, but the other part of the project has a much, much longer useful life. So,
Warranty. It's a 20-year warranty. They didn't say useful life.
right, but that,
Understood.
I'm just saying that it's more than 20 years involved in the rest of the project, so that shouldn't be a concern if that is actually the useful life. This document also authorizes the disclosure statement, which is called an official statement, and also a continuing disclosure undertaking. The city has a number of continuing disclosure undertakings for its other bonds. What that is it requires annual updates to the information in there, that there's information about your SEV and your taxable value and different tax collections and labor force, 10 top employers. All of that has to be updated yearly so that the bondholders can review that if they're making investment decisions regarding the bonds. Because even though the bonds are always sold once by the city, in the secondary market, they're subject to being bought and sold, even though that doesn't involve you, and so we need to keep that information current and updated, just like a company has to do an annual prospectus. This is similar to that requirement for the city. So then on the sale of the bonds, we've authorized the different city officials and the authorized officers to take whatever is action necessary to get the sale done. And you have hired Benzinski as your financial advisor. They're the ones who did your water rate study, and they're working on this deal with us as bond counsel. We've authorized bond insurance. I don't expect there will be bond insurance. You do have bond insurance on some of your sewer bond issues, or you have in the past, but I don't think you'll need it for this general obligation bond. You just went through a rating review from S&P, and you have a AA rating, which is a very good rating. So in my experience, the city of Grandville bonds have been very hot in terms of investment interest. There's lots of bids that usually come in to buy these bonds, and so we're expecting that to be the same when these bonds come up for sale in a couple weeks. One other tax issue, because you are issuing less than $10 million in a calendar year, we can designate these as something that the Internal Revenue Code calls a qualified tax exempt obligation. It's also sometimes called bank qualified. And that sometimes translates into a slightly lower interest rate because the banks or the purchasers of those bonds can then deduct their cost of carrying the bonds. So it's not a big difference, but it can make a difference. So since that's partly why we structured this at 10 million, so that we can take advantage of that possibility. Then attached as exhibits, we don't need to go into these in detail, but there's the form of the bond. There's a lot of blanks in this that won't be able to be filled until we sell the bonds. Even though there's, the $10 million, there's gonna be all kinds of smaller little bonds. They can be sold in 5,000 denominations. So the details of these depend on which year the bonds are due and so on. So those get all filled in later after we sell the bonds. Exhibit C is the notice of sale that's going to be published. That'll be published in a magazine called The Bond Buyer. It's also online. And this is what bidders look at, and these are the terms they have to qualify or comply with in order to buy the bonds. And then the last exhibit is that continuing disclosure undertaking, which is similar to ones that you have approved in the past. So that covers the authorizing resolution. I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution or the bond issue.
Questions for Sue?
I just want to add one clarifier, just so we're being as transparent as we can with the city council. So you've heard us talk a little bit, both between the previous resolutions authorizing the potential up to multiple issues. I think that that time it was not to exceed 15 million or something like that, 15 or 18 million. The intent behind that is the meter replacement and these water projects, they can't all happen at one time. And there's limits to the amount of time in which you can expend bond proceeds before you start to face tax consequences, or I'm going to use the word penalties. And in addition to that, because of structuring the bonds under $10 million in increments, there's the potential for some other rate benefits and so on and so forth. So the intent is that this first tranche of bonds is money that we can start to put to work as early as next spring with the first round of water main projects, the meter replacement projects. We would then be able to finish out, get the other projects under contract, have the ultimate cost at the end, and then, as Sue mentioned, in a couple more years, in a year, 2 or 3, once that initial funds have been expended, we would finish up these projects with a second bond offering. So just want to put that out on the table so we can discuss that in any more detail we need to. The other piece I will throw out, as Sue mentioned, kind of the tentative timeline for the putting the bonds out to market. Obviously, that is all contingent on us being comfortable moving forward this evening. Again, the intent would be to start expending bond funds in the spring, If we need to push a sale date, that we can do that. What's more important to me is that, you know, the council, is comfortable, and feels like they have a good understanding of what we're trying to do, where this funding is going to be going, how it's going to be repaid. So I don't want you all to feel like there's that timeline out there. We have to hit it, you're under pressure, you have to say yes tonight. Obviously, if we do get this approved this evening, we will plan to continue moving on that timeline. Again, the sooner we do that, the sooner we can get these projects under contract, the sooner we can get timelines going and start putting that money to work. But if we need to take some more time, if the council has questions or concerns, I just want to make sure you all are very comfortable knowing that, you know, let's make sure everyone up here is good, and we'll move forward from there.
Questions for Sue? Great, clear presentation as usual. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Your S&P's got a good rating for us, and hopefully lower rate. I guess we'll find out on September 9th for sure. Okay, so this is proposed resolution number, I believe, 3379. Bond authorizing resolution. Is there a motion to approve that resolution?
So,
Motion
Support.
and support by Tim. Any other comments or questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Nordhook,
yes.
Mayor Mas.
Yes. Great, thank you. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Next item is proposed ordinance number 319. And the suggestion is to introduce and table that. That's to adopt the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code. So, Matt, tell us about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've all been on the board for a while and may have seen this. Last time we adopted property maintenance code was 2016. We adopted the 2015 code. These codes get updated. It takes several years to put these together. We're a little bit behind. There's several reasons for that. One was my absence. Some of the differences between this 2021 code and 2015 code, there are two. One is more strict residential heating and water temperature requirements. For instance, the 2015 code uses terms like adequate. There are very specific temperatures required for residential heating and water temperatures now. Also, better definitions of what's considered unsafe and what's considered unfit for human occupancy. It is standard when we adopt these that we adopt them with a number of amendments to the code. That is standard practice for any city that adopts these codes. The ones that are listed, I think there are a total of 15 in my memo that I provided you. 14 of those were adopted with the 2015 code. The one that would be new is section 302.4, maximum height of grass and weeds of 12 inches, to make sure it's consistent with our other existing code, ordinance number 14-31. Pretty straightforward stuff. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Matt? Kind of interesting about the temperature, and there's nothing about air conditioning in there.
Occasionally, we'll get a tenant complain about temperature, especially in the winter. And there's a certain way you measure that. You have to be a certain distance from the wall and a certain distance from the floor. So.
Any questions for Matt about this proposed ordinance? Not. Is there a motion to introduce ordinance number 319, an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances for the city of Grandville by amending Article 5 of Chapter 6, Buildings and Building Regulations?
So moved.
Motion by Justin,
Support.
support by Paul. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Truce.
Yes.
Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Nordhook,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
Mayor Mas.
Yes. Next item is the consent agenda, a number of items under here and quite a few purchase requests, which I noticed, I believe they're all under budget, under the amount that we had budgeted. So that's always nice to see. I don't know if somebody just budgets high so we can do that, or if they're just very frugal. I think that's the case. So anyway, we've got the investment report from July, the minutes from the Environmental Sustainability Committee from July as well, and the August minutes from the Planning Commission and the Downtown Development Authority. We also have, as Martha alluded to, proposed Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And also, there's been a request for a special beer and wine liquor license request for the Fall Fest Beer Garden in the DDA parking lot. That's October 3 to 4, and Chamber of Commerce is going to be in charge of that. So Heather's here, if anybody has questions about that. And then there's, as I mentioned, some purchase orders, some software, the clean water plant, the storm sewer installation on Ottawa Avenue, vehicle equipment diagnostics program for the motor pool, the GPS unit for the water tank, and also the water tank inspection. And I believe, David, you had one concern about that you may want to talk about right now.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just had one comment on that agreement. Charlie and I spoke about it before the meeting. There's, in that contract, no requirement for insurance on the part of the contractor, including workers' comp insurance, which I think is important if they're gonna be working on this, important city infrastructure. And so there's also no indemnification clause for the city's benefit. In fact, there's an indemnification clause that goes the other way, and there's a limitation of liability in the contract. And so if it's acceptable to the council, appreciate the opportunity to work with Charlie and the contractor to address the insurance, the indemnity, and the limitation of liability provisions in that contract before it's signed, if that's acceptable.
So that would be, if we do approve the consent agenda and include that, it would be subject to approval by city council, or city's legal counsel.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, is there any of these items anybody would like to discuss individually before we?
If I can make two comments about the consent agenda. One, just want to make sure you all are aware this is the first investment report that shows the sale and the buying, I will use the liquidation term of the investment strategy we discussed on June 9th. So this is the first investment report. You would actually see those show up on there. If you want to go through it in more detail, I know Jane or I at another time would be happy to kind of point out some of those in more detail. And then the only other thing I want to call out is in regard to the authorization of the special beer and wine liquor license request. The chamber brought it to my attention that just due to some timing, they're making this request. If we can get it approved by council, they ultimately still need to go back to their board and get it formally approved. So the police chief would not sign those documents until that happened. But this has been something we've been doing for several years, so I was so comfortable bringing it before you all. I just wanted to point out that one clarifying point there.
Any other comments, anything anybody would like to discuss individually? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda in the best interest of the city, and also with the item that David, city attorney, mentioned, that the water tank inspection contract subject to this review and approval, he and Charlie.
All support.
And support by Tim. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Vanderwall,
Yes.
Gelderlos,
Yes.
Merringa,
Yes.
Nordhook,
Yes.
Steenstra,
Yes.
Truce,
Yes.
Mayor Mas.
Yes. Thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We were just talking here when we did the property maintenance code, did we both introducing a table, or we just introduced?
We only introduced that, so is there a motion to table?
Motion.
Support. Yeah.
So make sure we get both of those.
Yes. All in favor of table, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And the opposition say no. Thank you, Josh. Good catch. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're discussing it.
Okay.
Good job.
City managers report.
Thank you. Only one item for action on the city manager's report. It actually has a couple pieces, so I'll ask Kyla to come up if she doesn't mind. I'll give a little bit of a introduction or background, and then she can answer any questions. So, Kyla from the Grandville Tree Project is here this evening. She's got a couple requests for the council to consider. The first one is authorization in the amount of $3,500 to support the community tree sale in 2026. This has been supported by the council in the past. This wouldn't take place until early spring, late winter, early spring of 26, but appreciate Kyla being on top of kind of timelines to get this before you all in plenty of time. So council supported this action for several years. The amount has varied by years, and based on last year's sales, she's looking to increase it from $3,000 to $3,500. My recommendation is that any contribution that the city look to authorize be in a not to exceed amount. And then before I turn it over to Kyla, the other item she's looking for permission or authorization from the council on is she is seeking $2,500 to plant 10 trees in Heritage Park for Arbor Day via a DNR DTE grant. The DDA supported a similar grant request last year to plant the trees by the Farmers Market Pavilion for Arbor Day 2025. The deadline for this grant is September 15th, and Kyla described it to me that the one-to-one match that is required wouldn't need to be in cash contribution from the city. It could be contributed via in-kind staff time. I do not know a lot about this grant, so I'd encourage the council to ask any questions they may have to Kyla about that one. Otherwise, I'm happy to help where I can.
Kyla, quick question, and I should know the answer, but I don't exactly. So in the one-to-one match that the city's required for the DTE, is staff time, but is it volunteer time, and what credit do you get per volunteer hour?
Okay, so anything, we use the staff hours and their fringes as part of it. The one-to-one match, we can take gifts in kind and things like that too, but usually we surpass it with what we use in staff and a little bit of equipment, and the volunteers are $32 an hour, and anybody under 16 or children under 16 are half of that.
Because I remember you had a very successful tree planting at Wedgewood.
Yeah.
I know JR was there, maybe some more of you were there. So all those volunteers got not that exact amount, but
It wasn't that amount
that
then.
would really add up, I would think.
It adds
You've
up
got
really
100
quickly, and you think about the time that, you know, like we put planting it and, you know, going and picking the trees out and having them delivered. There's a lot of little hidden things that aren't even visible to other people. So usually we surpass the volunteer hours, do the one-to-one match. The one correction I would like to make on this though, I'm on both the tree board, the City of Grandville Tree Board as the chair, and I'm also on the tree project. And so we kind of define the differences as a project or the tree board. And these requests are both coming from the tree board. So that's why we're asking for permission for the grant and also for the tree sale, because the tree sale is actually the City of Grandville's tree sale. And as a nonprofit, we serve the City of Grandville, and so we've been the people that put it on an online store in the project, and we manage that for the city so that doesn't fall back on staff.
So the first thing is you're asking for a commitment right now for an amount not to exceed $3,500 for the tree sale, which takes place in March, April.
March, we always do it in March, and we wanted to do that because several of the tree board members felt that there's always a significant amount of residents that don't know about it. They're not aware of it. And so even at the street fair, because it's been approved in the past, we started letting people know about it so that people that are at our events can actually realize that this is coming up and they can start making plans for it. Because we want this open to everyone, and that communication that we've all experienced is kind of hard to get across to everybody. So we always ask people to share it. But that's why we're asking earlier this year too. And the other thing is, you know, what happens when we get towards the end of the budget year and try and come and ask for the money. It's just hard for you guys to do it, and it's hard for us to, you know, like, we're like, wait a minute, we need this money. So, and people it's been a very positive sale. Over the last 3 years, we planted 202 trees in Grandville. And you know, we're always cutting trees down, like a tree gets diseased or it's in the way of something that's happening, or, you know, we're gonna lose trees. So this is one way to combat that, and to have people build or put trees on their property. Because we're limited with the streets, with the utilities and things. We have to be very careful about where we're gonna plant and how it wouldn't be in the way.
Justin?
Yeah, I have one question for Kyla and then one budget question. The question for you, Kyla, are you asking DTE for $2,500 on their end and then asking us for a matching allotment of money? Or are you assuming that the volunteer hours are contributing toward that $2,500? Or are those in addition to the $2,500? I'm trying to get a feel for like what's the overall ask in the grant.
So the overall project would be $5,000.
Okay.
And what the city would need to do is pay for the trees and then be reimbursed when the grant's completed. This grant cycle goes a little bit longer than the Consumers Energy grant that we were just awarded, that you approved us to write. And that one will end in November, so the reimbursement will come back really quickly. And this one we submit September 15th, and we have a year to complete that project. So this grant is a really nice grant to use for Arbor Day. Some of the grant time periods don't fall in that, so we try to use the DTE and the DNR grant to do that, to be able to plant for Arbor Day.
All right, and then my second question is more of a budgetary question, and that is, I remember when we were approving the budget, there was a discussion of a line item that I don't remember what it was called, but it kind of encompassed tree board, environmental sustainability committee, and we talked about how that line item isn't broken down with specific line items for each. And so I'm wondering, what was that, sorry to put you on the spot, but do you remember the amount of that, and like how much has been devoted to tree board versus ESC, and how much is left? And
So I don't know, I can't tell you without looking what has been spent out of there. We're only basically 60 days into our next budget cycle.
Yeah.
We budgeted $5,000 in that line item, and without getting up, running to my office and taking a look to see if anything has been expended out of there, I don't believe there has been yet. If so, it's under 1,000. So.
But to your point, Justin, I mean the tree sale alone is a majority of
Most
that
of
line.
that. Okay.
You know, we're anticipating with the ESC, you know, and some of the events that they talked about, the EcoQuest coming up, there's gonna be a small under $1,000 amount that I authorize out of there. So again, I think the bigger point for me is these are all, you know, great things for our community to be doing, but over the years, the amount is continuing to go up, and, you know, there's a point where we're just gonna have to decide if we want to keep doing these things, we're gonna have to continue to increase the amount we're budgeting, or at a certain point, we're gonna have to go, it's a great idea, we love doing these things, but just budget-wise, we don't have the funds to do that. So, I mean, I think, I can tell you the community tree sale is something that my understanding is the city has done for many years in a row. There is funding in the budget to support that. Some of these additional contributions from the grants are things that, I mean, they're great ways to try to leverage some of the dollars, but, you know, we weren't aware of those at the time we were putting the budget together, so it's ultimately up to the council, do we want to make that happen or not.
Okay.
And just because you exceed the budget doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It just needs to be decided. So, yes, we put $5,000 in the budget, but if you all feel like that wasn't enough, that is able to be remedied. So because again, in May, you know, you go with your best idea of what the future is going to look like. So just because it's not in the budget doesn't mean that we couldn't amend that budget and make it look different, if that makes sense.
I think the consideration, at least in my mind, is obviously, Kyle, I want to support all these projects, and I think you do a great job and always try to support them. But if we were to have the Environmental Sustainability Committee start to bring us initiatives like this, it could start to add up, and then we're kind of asked as a council, which ones are we prioritizing over others, and so that's maybe where I'm a little more hesitant, but, yeah, okay.
Well, and I appreciate that, Justin, and I am not asking for money for these grants per se. The problem is the city needs to put the money out to be reimbursed for it. And we, you know, like we've been a tree board for 7 years and we've always been able to report correctly on our grants and get our money back. But I just, you know, like you're still putting the money out to get it back. And like the consumer's grant will plant the week after the Fall Fest. And then as soon as I submit it in November, they return the funds for that. So there was $2,000 that will need to be paid out to buy the trees. So I don't want to spend the city's money, and we still do use like the DPW hours and things like that. So that contributes our match because they want to know that we're involved and we want to support it too. But I don't want to spend money. Is what I was trying to do is bring a couple $1,000s in and 10 trees here, a couple $1,000 or 2,500 over here, and another 10 trees. And not tax our volunteers that have all got busy lives, but to improve the city as we go forward.
So you think the DTE portion of the grant will cover most of the cost?
That's the part I'm.
The reimbursement to the city?
Okay, so you have the trees, they're 2,500,
Yep.
and then over here I have to match it, and you can imagine if we're getting $32 an hour for our board meeting to plan the Arbor Day event, you have 7 board members right there at $32 an hour. That's just a little piece of it. And I don't know if you were involved in our Arbor Day, like over at the middle school. We had, I don't know, 250 children. Plus we had, I don't know, probably 100, 150 people when we planted the trees over at the middle school. If they're actively planting, I track it with a QR code and they all sign in. And then I have to provide that list when I submit for the grant. But we usually surpassed what we needed.
But Kyle, just to clarify, so you're gonna submit for $5,000?
No. 2,500.
And then we match the.
And then it comes back.
Okay, so, but essentially, we're looking to spend $2,500 on trees.
Yeah, 2,500 on trees, I'm sorry.
And we would get that $2,500 back because we would be able to show them that we committed $2,500 worth of volunteer and staff time.
That's what we've done in the past.
Charlie keeps track of all of his staff time and his equipment usage and everything that
He's
also goes
awesome.
toward, to offset our match, the city's match.
Because you think of a pickups out there, or the water tank comes out to water trees when we plant them, or, you know, there's quite a few things that you're not even aware of that those hours, and we try not to exceed a lot of hours out of the DPW because that's not fair to Charlie. But most of our work is done with volunteers. And that saves DPW guys going out and planting trees too.
Any other questions? If not, let's take this in 2 separate things. The first would be, is there a motion to authorize a request not to exceed $3,500 in support of the community tree sale in 2026?
So move.
Support.
Motion support.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gelderlos?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Nordhook?
Yes.
Steenstra?
Yes.
Truce?
Yes.
Vanderwall?
Yes.
Mayor Mas?
Yes. The next would be, is there a motion to allow a grant application in the amount of $2,500 for the DNR DTE grant that Kyla has explained, knowing that the city would be obligated to match that amount with in-kind contributions of equipment, volunteers, and city staff. Yeah.
Can I add one little piece to that? I also had spoken to Griffin. My daughter was married last weekend, and Steve married her. It was all great, but so it was a little busy time. And I said to Griffin, if the city council will give me approval to write the grant or to possibly submit it, then I will bring the completed one, get it to Griffin for the next city council meeting, so that you can approve and you can see the breakdown of the budget and everything.
So are you suggesting we wait on the approval on that?
Can I get an approval that I can go forward to write the grant? Because I don't want to write it if we're not gonna go forward with it.
I think if you guys want to have her move forward, we're happy to work with her, and we don't necessarily need to bring that back to you all, and we can work with her on that.
So then we're looking for a motion to authorize going ahead with that.
So,
Motion by Tim, support by Josh. Any other comments, questions? Okay, would you call the roll there, please?
Councilmember Merringa?
yes.
Norhuck?
Yes.
Steenstra?
Yes.
Truce?
Yes.
Vanderwall?
Yes.
Gelderlos?
Yes.
Mayor Mas?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. I know it's been a long meeting. Just two other quick announcements for the group. The first one is, we just want to make you all aware that we discovered over the weekend that there had been some flooding in the DPW building. It sounds like one of the drinking fountain sprung a leak, and one of our mechanics had to go in over the weekend for something, and it was fortunate that it was discovered. So unfortunately, we are working through that. We will likely be submitting an insurance claim. Charlie's team did a really good job of jumping on that really quick, but unfortunately, we learned about that.
Water is the topic.
It's unbelievable how much we do has to do with water, apparently. And then the last one is actually just an exciting one that I wanted to share with the group. I put a couple pages on the dais kind of last minute. Had a really exciting kickoff meeting with the Virdas design group, who was the landscape architecture firm that was hired by Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. at their cost to kick off a feasibility study for converting Indian Mounds Drive to a non-motorized trail. So just wanted to share with you some of the materials I received today about their community engagement strategy and the timeline for this project. I know kind of one-on-one I've had conversations with most of you by now with your thoughts about this. So obviously it'll be a long-term planning effort, but I was really, walked away really energized and optimistic after that meeting that we've got a really good team in place to maybe be able to make something really cool happen there. So I'll keep you all updated as it progresses, but just wanted to share those initial materials.
I think JR is looking forward to that project. Keep them alive.
Thank you again. I know it was a long meeting, but I appreciate everyone's involvement. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions.
I forget where we did, we started the last meeting, but let's start with JR.
Tonight, thank you.
Paul?
I have nothing to add either, thanks.
Tim?
No, I have nothing.
Justin? Nothing. Josh?
Just a couple quick things.
No.
I'll make it quick. So, since we were talking earlier about, housing needs and things like that, I just wanted to let you know that the Michigan Municipal League kind of made a public announcement and press conference the other day. They're launching the My Home program, which is kind of an initiative to kind of lobby the state legislature to allocate $160 million annually for the next 5 years to stimulate the housing investment across the state of Michigan. Includes a number of different things. They're looking to build over 10,000 homes being built or rehabbed. It's really to support investment, to accelerate housing construction and rehabilitation, while providing some updates to local zoning regulations that will help cultivate thriving communities and stimulate economic vitality. So kind of right in line with what we were talking about with some of the housing needs. in West Michigan, but also kind of across the state. So housing is one of the hot topics in Lansing and kind of across the state. And the league has been doing a lot of work on that as one of our several priority initiatives. So if you hear anything about the My Home program, if you go to the conference in a couple weeks, I'm sure they'll be talking more about it. But kind of an exciting announcement to come out of Lansing this week about that. I was glad to hear that the Indian Mountains project's moving forward, and we talked about that a lot with the Park and Rec team. I was actually on the team that, or the Park and Rec committee, I was actually on the team that went down there for the bucket cleanup to help pick up trash along Indian Mountains as well. Not as bad as it has been in years past, but still a lot of off-roading, a lot of people camping and leaving garbage and stuff along the banks of the Grand River, and there's always tons of stuff, you know, pulled out of there, which is kind of amazing, but glad to hear that that's moving along. And then I had a question for Jane. So you may have seen on the city sign that summer taxes are due August 31st. That happens to be Sunday. So which day officially do you have to pay your taxes
So
by?
taxes are technically due, much like the IRS, you know, your tax returns are due the 15th, but you get penalty free. So until we close a business on Tuesday, people can continue to pay their taxes without penalty.
Okay, so it's officially due on Sunday, but closed on Monday for Labor Day, so then 5 o'clock on Tuesday is kind of the drop dead. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Brandon, I used to hate the things.
That was pretty quick.
I have nothing to ask.
The only thing I have to say is we covered a lot of material tonight, and I just appreciate working with a group that is always prepared for the meetings and knows what's happening and is prepared. And you've done your homework and due diligence, and that is a real benefit. Thank you all. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Sport.
And support. All right. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Please say no.